Graham, I'm a member of the personalisation expert panel, as you know, and I've been involved in trying to encourage Hampshire in engagement with users for a long time, and in many respects we've achieved quite a lot of that. We still have a long way to go in terms of developing co-production in the future, but I know you are committed to working together with us, and as we are with you through a very difficult period we are now facing. So, can you please tell me your name and role in Hampshire?
Yeah, thank you, John. So I'm Graham Allen. I'm Integrated Services Director for Transformation within Adult Services at Hampshire County Council.
What have you done in terms of co-production in Hampshire, and can you give us some examples of that work?
I think there's quite a long track record in Hampshire over actually many years now. So certainly going back to 2008, we had the Commission for Personalisation, which indeed was something of an engine in terms of identifying ways forward to work with people through co-production. And actually from that we've seen the Personalisation Expert Panel created, which continues to this very day. And that's about, I guess, challenging, engaging with the department management team and indeed the wider department and council in terms of issues that are key for people that we can work together with around co-production. Alongside that, there are then a number of other mechanisms in which we use quite routinely, and they're now part of the fabric, the waft and weave of how we operate. So, for example, the Learning Disabilities Partnership Board and the local implementation groups that feed information and issues up to the main partnership board to again enable us as an organisation to engage with people with learning disabilities to help shape services as we go forward. So that partnership working with people who use, benefit, helping us to design services is absolutely key to us.
Can you reflect upon some of the things you've learned from that?
I think probably over about a dozen or so years, which is the period of time that I've worked in local government within social care. I think the thing that keeps coming back to me, the thing that I'm constantly reminded by, is that actually we need to engage with people to make the services that we provide usable, accessible and fit for purpose. I think sometimes it's too easy or it's too seductive for organisations to design services that they think are going to be accessible, only to be found time and time again that that's not the reality for people. So some of the things that I can certainly reflect on in my dozen or so years of working in social care are around some really quite key fundamental areas. So for example, a direct payment scheme. So rather than having officers of the local authority telling people, you know, this is how it works, this is how you can benefit from it, is to actually use experts by experience, people in receipt of a direct payment as that first point of contact for potential new users of direct payments, to actually get the information in terms of this is what it's really like. These are the things you need to watch out for. These are the things that I've been able to do as a consequence. So that's absolutely key, I think, in terms of some of the lessons that I constantly get reminded by is we need to engage. Failure to engage at our peril will design services which are perfect from a local authority perspective, but that means they're likely to be really bureaucratic, really complicated and not easy to access. Flipping that on its head and engaging with people then creates that opportunity through co-design to make services genuinely accessible to people.
Thank you. What difference has it made working with the people you've been working with and the organisations you've worked with?
Yeah, I think the challenge and the opportunity, working together, and it's about mutuality, I think. It's about being able to bring the collective wisdom together. So one very obvious example, a very current example, is working with the PEP, the Personalisation Expert Panel, and others around the transfer of ILF funding, and actually being identified early on by people through PEP in terms of some of the thinking that we've had to do, and actually being able to get slightly ahead of the game. I think actually work in a way very positively with recipients of ILF, in a way actually that's allowed for some sense of confidence and safety going forward in what is a very uncertain, very challenging time. I think that's been a really good example in terms of how we work really well together through co-production.
Can you give me some examples of how it's avoided making costly mistakes and making it better through co-production.
So I think really just to continue that last point around the transfer of ILF, I think it is really important to acknowledge just how challenging it is in terms of the economic climate that we've got at the moment within local authorities, and how that is potentially going to leave people feeling in terms of that uncertainty. And actually working in a proactive upstream kind of way to engage early on, to actually work with people rather than doing to, but working with, I think helps to give that confidence and keep the landscape as settled as possible for people. So that's a really good example from my perspective.
Do you have any top tips for co-production?
Engage early and keep talking. Again, I think at times, particularly in the climate that we're working within now, sometimes it's too easy to actually stop talking. If anything, the time is now requiring us to communicate more, to engage more. Because certainly I don't believe for a moment there's the wisdom within adult services, local government generally, to solve some of the challenges that we've got. Working with people, starting to explore the assets that reside in our local communities in terms of resources, in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom. Unlocking that is absolutely key, and we only do that by good communication and continuing the conversation.
What advice would you give to other directors on co-production?
The advice is really simple. If you haven't started doing it, think about starting doing it now. Engage with it. It's really positive for all concerned. And I think you're able to work in a way that actually buys an awful lot of value. Certainly staff really appreciate it. Some of the most powerful learning that staff can engage in is when they're working with service users around some of the challenges, some of the transformational opportunities that we've got in the way that we deliver services. It makes so much more sense, it's far more resonant to them than having senior managers or trainers delivering a slide deck of material. So if you haven't started, start now. It's not that scary.
Can you tell me about what you think are the best aspects of co-production?
I think in order to answer that, let me give a really direct example of where I think co-production was absolutely on the money. And in a way, it's a really quite simplistic one, and it's one from a year or two back now. But one of the big challenges frequently in the social care world within local authorities will be around how our workers complete assessments and so on and so forth, and how challenging it is sometimes to simplify them. So one of the pieces of work that I'm quite proud of is a piece of work done, as I say, a few years ago, not in Hampshire, which was around co-production with people that receive services and our care management staff to redesign aspects of the assessment format. And it really started from the premise, if you were to undertake a self-assessment, what's important to be able to write down and acknowledge, to record, and how does that translate, how does that transfer through to what the local authority need? And it was a fantastic piece of work in that it made the whole assessment process from beginning to end and the format for recording and capturing information a lot simpler. And what it also did, it flushed out all of the issues that for some of the people that had received services for some years had thought, well, actually there must be almost a secret set of questions that the workers are answering as well that we never see. And actually it drew all of this out into a single process, a single document. And it just became much more intuitive for everyone involved. People receiving services and workers, social workers and others that were required to complete the assessment format. And it just flowed beautifully. And of course, the benefits of that were not only that it made it simpler and easier to use, but also in terms of the piece of work, it then enabled some real confidence going into, well, okay, the assessment stands up to scrutiny in terms of how it's been designed. So in terms of then the support planning, it naturally flowed. So it made the whole process from beginning to end really succinct and really clear for people.
During these times of austerity, it's been very difficult for service users and also for people within local authorities. How do you think co-production has helped that process?
I think it's absolutely pivotal, John. I mentioned earlier the fact that there isn't the wisdom within one single part of the system to answer all of the challenges that we face. So actually co-production with people in receipt of services, the wider population, with partners, is key for us going forward. So that we don't do things in silos, that we actually bring the wisdom forward that will enable us to redesign a whole range of options, services, and what the offers need to be to provide people with the support that they require. So some of the work that we're doing, as you'll be aware here in Hampshire, is meeting with the likes of the personalisation panel and indeed other stakeholder groups to try and work out, well actually, what are the best areas, what are the best opportunities where we can co-produce some of the solutions, because some of these issues are genuinely wicked in terms of the challenges that we face, and it really is absolutely key to get everyone working together. We're not always going to agree, it's not always going to be easy, but unless we have the conversation, unless we attempt to co-produce, we'll never find any solution. So this is a key opportunity for us to transform. And in a way, it's possible to overblow the word transformation. It's not about cuts, it's about changing the way that we operate. The financial challenges that we face provide us with a unique opportunity, I think, to reset the way in which we work together for the next decade and beyond. Most local authorities, we've done the salami slicing. We can't continue to operate in that way as we go forward. We've got to genuinely look at the foundations of how we work together and radically transform the way in which services are offered in order to give people more choice and control over those services into the future.
Graham, you're a senior manager within Hampshire. Do you feel that other senior managers also share that same understanding that you have of co-production?
Yeah, but I think at the same time we're all on a continuum, aren't we? Because some colleagues will be further along that than I am, and some will be behind me. I think part of, again, the opportunity through co-production and working with stakeholders is to continue a conversation and to get some gentle, critical challenge coming to us as individuals, but also as a collective in terms of what we're doing. And those opportunities to further develop, not only within particular departments of a local authority, but across the whole of the local authority, reaching out to partners. That's the opportunity that we've got to seize.
Is there anything else you would like to say about co-production?
I think the key thing is that actually, as an organisation, we made a commitment some time ago, and actually we carry that commitment forward. So once you've started, in a way, you can never turn away from it. Because if you do, you know you're going to be challenged, quite rightly so. So it is a commitment that's made by the whole organisation. It doesn't just rest with individuals. You sometimes need individuals to ignite it. But actually, once it starts, it gets picked up, and the organisation, the community, begins to own it. And that's where the power, I think, really comes from.
Okay, thank you.